96,000 people tracked for nearly 4 decades. And what the data found, what these women eat, how they age, what their bodies do is the opposite of what most American women have been told. The study is called the Adventist Health Study. Dr. Gary Fraser has been running it since 1987 at Loma Linda University. That makes it the longest-running nutritional cohort study of a single American community in history. And the women at the center of that data, the vegetarian Adventist women of Loma Linda. California stay lean into their 80s and 90s at rates that have no parallel anywhere else in the United States. Not 5 lb gained after menopause. Not 1 lb. Dr. Fraser has been watching them do this for 37 years. This is what he found, and this is what they eat. Before we get into the food, I want to tell you something about how this community thinks about eating that most people miss entirely. The Adventist women of Loma Linda do not think about calories. They do not count macros. They do not go on a menopause diet and come off it 6 weeks later. They have been eating the same way their entire lives, long before menopause arrived and long after. The foods on their plates are not a protocol. They are Tuesday, they are Saturday. They are every day for 60 years. That consistency is part of the data. Dr. Fraser's study does not capture a 6-week intervention. It captures lifetimes. And the outcomes are not small. Vegetarian Adventist women in AHS2, published in JAMA Internal Medicine in 2013, had 12% lower all-cause mortality than their non-vegetarian peers. Lower rates of cardiovascular disease, lower rates of endocrine disease, lower rates of kidney disease, and body weights that across a 10-year window that included the menopause transition barely moved. The vegan and near-vegan women in the study gained an average of 0.6 kg over 10 years. Non-vegetarian women in the same study 4 times that amount. Same age range, same study, different plates. So what is on those plates? I want to walk through this the way Dr. Fraser's data actually describes it. Not as a list, but as a kitchen, as a real meal. Because when you understand what these women actually eat on a Tuesday morning, the science becomes obvious. It stops feeling like a study and starts feeling like a choice you could make this week. Start with breakfast. In a Loma Linda Adventist home, breakfast is almost always oatmeal. Old-fashioned rolled oats, not instant. Cooked with water or unsweetened soy milk. On top, a small handful of walnuts, some blueberries or sliced banana. That is it. No juice. No toast with butter. No cereal from a box. That single meal contains 3 of the 5 things I'm going to tell you about today. And by the time you understand why each one works, the meal will make a different kind of sense. The first is soy. Soy milk in the oatmeal. Tofu at lunch. Edamame as an afternoon snack. Tempeh in a stir-fry on Wednesday. The Adventist women of Loma Linda consume soy in some form almost every day. And for decades, mainstream American culture told women over 50 that this was dangerous. That soy was like estrogen. That it would feed cancer. That it would disrupt hormones. The data does not support that. It contradicts it. Soy contains compounds called isoflavones. Genistein and didzane are the main ones. These isoflavones bind to estrogen receptors in the body. But here's the part that most of the scare articles left out. They bind to the weak receptor, not the strong one. By occupying that receptor site, they actually block the stronger forms of estradiol from attaching. It is not additive. It is competitive. The effect is protective, not harmful. There is a second mechanism that gets almost no attention. After menopause, the estrogen that the body still produces in small amounts, mainly from fat tissue, circulates and recirculates through the bloodstream if the digestive system does not clear it efficiently. Chronically recirculating estrogen contributes to insulin resistance and abdominal fat accumulation. Soy isoflavones, by binding the weak receptor, reduce the biological signal that estrogen recirculation generates. Less signal means less downstream effect on fat storage. The Loma Linda women have been running this system their whole lives without knowing the mechanism. In postmenopausal women, specifically, regular soy isoflavone intake reduced hot flash frequency by 25 to 30% across multiple meta-analyses published in the journal Menopause. And in terms of body composition, visceral fat specifically, women consuming soy isoflavones showed measurably better outcomes than those who did not. The Adventist women of Loma Linda have among the lowest breast cancer rates in the United States. They eat soy every day. Both things are true. 37 years of data from a single community does not lie. One serving any form. That is where to start. Open your fridge right now, not metaphorically. If you're watching this at home, actually go look. How many beans, lentils, or chickpeas are in there? The Loma Linda Kitchen, and I have read the dietary records, has at minimum 3 different legumes available at any given moment. A pot of lentil soup in the refrigerator, a bag of cooked black beans, dried chickpeas in the pantry, because the second food is legumes. Every single daily serving of legumes, 1 cup of cooked lentils, 1 cup of black beans, 1 cup of chickpeas is associated in the data with a 7 to 8% reduction in all-cause mortality. That is from a 2019 analysis in the journal Nutrients Drawing on both AHS2 data and global cohort studies. 7 to 8% per serving per day. But for postmenopausal women specifically, the mechanism goes beyond mortality. Legumes are among the highest fiber foods you can eat. And fiber in the context of menopause does something that most women have never been told. The connection between fiber and estrogen metabolism was documented in studies published in Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers, and Prevention. Women eating 30 grains of fiber per day or more showed measurably higher fecal estrogen excretion, meaning the body was clearing excess estrogen through the digestive system rather than recirculating it. The Adventist women of Loma Linda eat 40 to 50 jars of fiber per day. The American average is 15. That recirculating estrogen, the kind that does not get cleared, contributes to insulin resistance and belly fat accumulation after menopause. More fiber means more excretion. More excretion means less recirculation. Less recirculation means a body that manages weight differently than the one that has been eating 15 jari a day for 30 years. 1 cup of lentils tonight. There is a doctor in Ohio I want to tell you about. She is not a real person, but she is every woman I have read about in the data who followed the advice she was given. She is 58 years old. She entered menopause in 2010. Her doctor told her to eat heart-healthy, low-fat dairy, lean chicken breast, whole wheat bread. She cut out red meat. She switched from butter to margarine. She reduced her portion sizes and added a 30-minute walk 3 times a week. By 2020, she had gained 14 ONLB. Her fasting insulin was elevated. She was on 2 medications, one for blood pressure, one for cholesterol. She felt tired in the afternoons. She had given up on the idea of getting her weight back to where it was before. In Loma Linda, at the same time, there is a woman her age who ate oatmeal with walnuts every morning, beans at lunch, tofu twice a week, broccoli with every dinner. She did not go to a gym. She did not count anything. By 2020, she weighed within a kilogram of what she had weighed at 50. She tended a garden 3 afternoons a week. She baked bread for her neighbors on Saturdays. 2 women, same birth year, same menopause, 2 completely different food environments. One road led one place, the other led somewhere else entirely. The third food is nuts. And here is what Dr. Fraser's study found that should settle this argument once and for all. The Adventist women who ate nuts 5 or more times per week were leaner than those who did not. Despite the caloric density, despite the fact that a single ounce of walnuts contains 185 calories, they were leaner. A 2013 study published in BMC Medicine from the Predimmed Intervention Trial found that eating 1 serving of nuts 3 or more times per week was associated with a 39% reduction in all-cause mortality and no weight gain. None. Over years of follow-up. The mechanism is not mysterious. Nuts contain protein, fiber, and monounsaturated fat in a combination that increases satiety and slightly elevates resting metabolism. The calories in a handful of walnuts do not behave the same as the calories in a piece of white bread. The body responds differently to them. The Adventist women know this, not because they read a study. They know it because walnuts have been on their kitchen counter for 50 years and they are not gaining weight. 1 Oz 3 times a week. That is the minimum from the data. I want to stop here for a moment because I am aware of what I am asking you to reconsider. Soy, beans, nuts. Everything you may have been told is complicated, hormonal, calorie-dense, or confusing. Here is my honest assessment after going through 37 years of data from 96,000 people. The complexity is mostly invented. The Adventist women of Loma Linda are not doing something complicated. They are doing something consistent. And consistency, it turns out, is what the data actually rewards. This is not about being perfect. It is about which foods show up on your plate most often. Because your body does not respond to your best week. It responds to your average Tuesday. Before the last two foods, I want to tell you about something we built for this community. People watching this channel who are 55, 60, 65, and done with things that stop working after 6 weeks. The Blue Zone Body Reset is a 90-day protocol built specifically for people in that window. It is not a diet. It is the system that the research actually supports. The foods, the timing, the combinations that the Adventist Health Study, the Okinawa data, and the Mediterranean cohort studies all point toward. No gym required, no calorie counting, no supplements that cost more than groceries. Get it at bluezoneprotocol.netlify.app. The link is in the description. If you are watching on television, it is also in the description when you open the video on your phone. 90 days, built for the menopause transition, built for the decade after it. Now the last two. The fourth food is cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. The Adventist women eat 5 to 7 cups of leafy and cruciferous vegetables every day. That number is not an exaggeration. It is what the dietary records show. And cruciferous vegetables do something specific for postmenopausal women that leafy greens alone do not. They contain a compound called diindolyl methane, DIM, which is produced during digestion when cruciferous vegetables are broken down. DIM directly supports healthy estrogen metabolism. It helps the liver process and clear estrogen through a pathway that produces less of the metabolites associated with fat storage and more of the ones associated with healthy clearance. This is the gut estrogen belly fat axis that almost no menopause content talks about. Your liver is the primary site where estrogen gets processed after menopause. What you eat affects how that processing goes. The women in Loma Linda are eating in a way that systematically supports liver function and estrogen clearance, not because they understand the biochemistry, but because the food has been on the plate for generations. 1 to 2 cups with dinner, roasted, steamed, or raw. Any form counts. And the fifth is whole grains. Oatmeal in the morning, brown rice with dinner. The Adventist dietary pattern is anchored in whole grains, not as a background staple, but as a primary food. 2 to 3 servings a day, replacing refined flour and white rice entirely. The mechanism here is straightforward. Whole grains provide the fiber that slows glucose absorption and keeps insulin stable. After menopause, insulin sensitivity declines. The body handles carbohydrates differently than it did at 35. Refined carbohydrates drive insulin spikes that, over time, promote fat storage, particularly visceral fat around the abdomen. Whole grains dampen that spike. They deliver sustained energy without the crash. They provide B vitamins that support the metabolic processes that slow with age. Oatmeal is the breakfast standard in every Adventist kitchen I have read about. Not because anyone told them it was healthy, because it is what their grandmothers made. Let me give you the practical version of all of this. This week, your grocery list has 6 items: firm tofu, a bag of edamame, and a carton of unsweetened soy milk, around $8. A pound of mixed walnuts and almonds, $10. 3 ulbelly of dried lentils, chickpeas, and black beans, $6. Broccoli, kale, and cabbage, $8. Old-fashioned rolled oats and brown rice, $5. A bag of mixed berries, fresh or frozen, $6. $43, that is the Loma Linda kitchen. Monday morning, oatmeal with walnuts and blueberries. Soy milk instead of dairy. Monday lunch, lentil soup. A slice of whole grain bread. Monday dinner, tofu stir-fry with broccoli and brown rice. Afternoon snack, a small handful of almonds. That is one day. Repeat it 5 times with minor variations, and you have a week that looks like a Loma Linda week. Is it perfect? No. Is it a complete overhaul of everything in your kitchen done overnight? It should not be. One food at a time, one meal at a time. Start with breakfast. Open a kitchen cabinet right now. Is soy in there? Any form. Tofu, edamame, soy milk, miso paste, tempeh. If the answer is no, that is where to start, not because it is the most important food on this list. The data is clear that all five matter, but because it is the most underused, the most misunderstood, and the most likely to produce a noticeable change in how you feel in the first 2 weeks. One serving a day. That is the protocol. Here is what Dr. Gary Fraser has said in different ways across nearly 4 decades of publishing his data. The connection between what you eat and how long you live is not complicated. It is just inconvenient for the industries that profit from complicated. The Adventist women of Loma Linda are not following a trendy diet. They are not cycling through protocols. They are eating the same food they have always eaten. Beans on Monday, beans on Thursday, beans next year, tofu this week and tofu next month. Oatmeal every morning without thinking about it. And the body, measured across 96,000 people over nearly 40 years, responds to that consistency in a way that no 6-week intervention has ever replicated. 12% lower all-cause mortality, zero point 0.6 kilos of weight gain across a decade that included menopause, breast cancer rates below the national average, lean bodies in their 80s, gardens tended in their 90s. That is not a study, that is a life. Later this week, I am going to show you the 5 cheap foods Okinawan elders eat every day to protect the brain after 60. A completely different blue zone, completely different foods, same principle underneath. When you see both patterns together, you will know exactly what to stock in your kitchen and why it works. The link to the 90-day Blue Zone Body Reset is in the description. Start there if you want the full system, or start tonight with 1 cup of lentils and a handful of walnuts. Either way, you are starting. If this story changes the way you look at the simple foods in your pantry, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the history and science that they have tried to bury. Let's plant the seeds for a healthier future. The next treasure of longevity will be open soon.